Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Our episodes are every Friday at various times. And they're all posted up on themeetingspace.com and on various platforms. And today we're joined with Kevin Jones again, which I love talking to Kevin. We get really deep and our conversations are fun for me. So it's all about me. And
I love it too.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you love it too. Yeah. It's just an added bonus, really, now. So today's episode is going to be entitled "What Not to Do in Recovery." You know, lessons we learned or things that we just learn in recovery that tell us, hey, whatever you do, don't do this. And a lot of times, you know, being alcoholics or addicts, if somebody tells us not to do something, well, that's the very first thing we want to do, just to prove that we're different and that we're exceptions to the rule, right?
Yeah, and it sounds fun. Like, you tell me something not to do, it's like, but that sounds like the coolest thing I've ever done in my whole life. You're going to cut me off like that?
I feel like that's a part of my addiction, was being my own person, you know, doing my own thing. Like, every time someone would warn me about something, I would say, oh, well, maybe because that's you. But me, I'm different. You know, that's not going to affect me. You know, I'll be fine.
Like, one of the greatest when I smoked cigarettes, right? My mom's like, you're going to get addicted. I was like, I've been smoking for months. I haven't got addicted at all. Right? And then 12 years later, I'm still smoking cigarettes, right? And I'm like, I hate these cigarettes, you know, and I'm cussing them out and everything else. So, 100%.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, I don't understand. Okay, so one of the things that I feel like is a very, very powerful one is don't put the cart before the horse. And what that means is that when you're in early recovery especially, we could be so focused with getting our life back together that we want to focus on maybe getting the job or putting more effort into our job now that we're not drinking or using drugs, or maybe fixing the relationship that we're in. Maybe that's what's most important, or focusing too much on trying to like make it up to the family at first, or get a new relationship. You know, maybe, you know what, I've been in isolation, now's the time to socialize, I got to get out there, I'm feeling like I have a lot more time and money, you know, so I need to go out there and meet somebody, you know, or whatever it is that we think we're still focused outside of ourselves in early recovery. We're still thinking that our serenity, our self-esteem, everything is based on things outside of ourselves being a certain way. And so we really, really want to fix that stuff because we think that's the real problem in our life. While, of course, in early recovery, we do want to be a better employee. We do want to take better care of ourselves. We do want to go and, you know, be better in our relationships. It is really important that we don't put all of that first. That if we choose to put our recovery first, our recovery ends up making us feel so much more comfortable and clear-headed in our own skin that we are able to be better employees. We're able to be better partners. We're able to naturally take better care of ourselves. We're able to be more focused on these other things in a healthy way. But when they come first and recovery comes last, then we don't actually focus on the reading, the writing, the hanging out in the recovery events, the mind focus that we need to do, and we end up with maybe some improvement in these areas of our lives, but inside it's just we're a walking time bomb, because being that uncomfortable, all we need is the life partner getting upset with us, the job getting hard, being fired, or, you know, something happening with our health, or whatever. All we need, because we're still so focused on who we think we need to be out in the world, that all we need is for something to go wrong, and we'll be back to, you know what, you know, F this. I'm not going to do this anymore. This recovery doesn't work, and then we'll go and we're off to the races.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is that there's a catalyst for my recovery, right? Always. And I whenever say you can't get sober for your kids, you can't get sober for your job, you can't do any of this stuff. I mean, you can't stay sober, but I can want to get sober because of those things, right? So when that's my catalyst, it's like my kids, I want to spend more time with them. So as soon as I start finding recovery, I look at the reason I recovered in the first place, right? And if I try to only be recovered for that reason, right, it's going to destroy everything I've done. But when I first got in recovery, I wanted my job back. That's right. I remember being in rehab, and I'm telling the people, like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to get my job back with this company called The Bee. And I can't wait to work with them, right? These guys paid for my apartment. They gave me a salary. They drove me around. I burnt all that down, right? So I cannot wait to get their respect again and get that job. So I ended up leaving the rehab and going to this tiny little town somewhere where that company actually had moved to, and I didn't know that at the time, right? So it was like God's will. But I get into that job, and it just doesn't pay anything, right? And so every reason I got sober, everything that I wanted out of this, right? I wanted the respect again. I wanted the clout, right? At that point in time, I'd been nominated for Community Achievement Awards in the area that I was in, all kinds of great stuff. So when I get this job back, I want all that stuff back, but it's not working out that way because it's not the kind of job I had before. It's a different version of the company. Still a great company. I love the guys there, and they definitely helped me through my recovery because they knew what I was. But if I wasn't still going to certain places, right, to learn the message, right, if I wasn't still getting those lessons, that could have devastated me. Man, if that was the only reason I was staying sober, I would have went back out for sure. Because the job wasn't what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because if you think about it, it's a very self-help mentality to think that all I need is a little bit more motivation and to dry out and start all over again and to put all this energy into being better in all these areas, to get the better job, to fix the relationship, to get a relationship, whatever, right? It's still this it's still not understanding what really is driving addiction and alcoholism. Like, it's still thinking that I'm just not good enough, I'm not putting enough energy enough, I'm not being a good enough girl. I got to do these things. And it's also saying that I need all these things for me to be okay. It's part of my identity. If I don't have a job, then I'm a loser. Or if I don't have, a relationship, then I'm alone, whatever. So, putting all that first, putting all the energy into that first. It's not instead, by the way. It's not saying just focus on your recovery and don't even think about working, don't even think about your relationship, don't even think, just be like, no, whatever. It may be temporarily that you do that, because I had to do that initially. I was pretty sick. And I had to really understand that, because wherever you go, there you are. So if I went and I put all the energy back into the job, back into dating or being in the relationship or whatever, what was happening is I was bringing me. I was bringing the same headspace, the same lack of tools, the same toxic thinking, the same stuffed feelings, the same hyperreactive, sensitive skin on the outside, skin inside out kind of mentality. And now what's happening? I'm now going, but now I don't have my solution of drugs and alcohol to maybe after I'm done and I lose my what and I need to go feel better. Now I don't have that. I need to get real perspective and I need to have real healing so that I can now start to have tools. Now what's really cool is if recovery comes first, then as I get a job, as I go for an interview, as I deal with life on life's terms, as things come up, I now have recovery to lean on. I have this foundation, I have this net, I have these tools, I have this support, and I have new insight. I've healed some stuff. I've gotten rid of some of that garbage, some of that energy that I've been packing and stuffing in my feelings. And I'm more clear-headed. I've learned to be more intuitive, to trust it. I can have people to run things by, to get clearer about it too, even more. I meditate, I pray, I start to not take on too much, and my mind gets clearer. I become a better partner. I become a better employee, and I'm not tiring myself by trying to have unrealistic expectations of myself. I start to learn one step at a time, one day at a time, and I start to live in progress, not perfection. And then when people piss me off in any of these areas, I get to learn to have love and tolerance. I get to learn how to speak my mind, but not say it in a mean way. I get to do these things that, if I was so uncomfortable in my own skin and my only tools to fit in and to be productive, the truth is I use drugs to be productive too. If this is how I was running, then I need a whole different fuel system. I need a whole different programming on how to do these things in my life. And it behooves me to be honest with myself about where I'm at in a room full of people in a world in recovery where other people feel the same way and have done the same things and get it. You know, it's not like, and by the way, there's a lot of people I end up finding in all these areas that they also have this stuff too. You know, water rises to its own level, and so you end up finding, wow, like they're operating without tools too. You know, they're
Water rises to its own level. I like that. You just throw those little wise clips in there once in a while. I like those ones. I was thinking to myself, if you can't, to clarify that you need recovery along with whatever else you're doing, right? You just don't want to put whatever else you're doing above it, because it's not like you have to stop using it. When we first come in here, I think that if I stop using drugs and drinking, that all my life will fall back into place. But even when I do, it doesn't, right? Because I'm still the same person. So I'm using recovery to figure out what kind of person I want to become, why I keep being uncomfortable in these situations. So to live my life alongside recovery just makes sense, right? Because it's going to be the tools and the resources through experience.
It's the classroom.
Yeah, on how I'm going to handle all these situations. So I need it to guide me through that. I think everybody needs it personally, but most people won't find it because they didn't lead the lives that we led.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I definitely agree with everything that you said.
And not just that, but it's just occurred to me too. If we start off with the wrong foundation in our recovery, then on some level, won't we also be keeping it separate? Like we'll think work is separate from recovery. Our relationships are separate from recovery. And where will be the practicing the principles in all our affairs then? Where will it be seeing every situation that I'm in as a classroom? You know, that I am going to get triggered at work. I am going to be up against something in a relationship situation or even in dating that's going to bring up something for me. And what will I then do with it, right? If I'm saying, oh, well, that's just work, that's just work, that's just my relationship, and this is recovery. These are all compartmentalized parts of my life, as if I'm only in recovery part-time, and then dry me gets to go to work, and dry me gets to go and have relationships, and like, aren't they lucky that I show up, you know?
Yeah. All right, so then people talk about like the selfish part of recovery.
Yeah.
Right, where everything has to be about me and my recovery. It's me going and doing things for my recovery. But the reason I do all these things for my recovery is because I'm supposed to be learning these tools or these spiritual principles that I get to practice in all my affairs, right? So if I'm not practicing them in anything because I'm not doing anything anymore, right, then where is my recovery? I don't have any. I'm just sitting there doing this stuff that makes me look good in front of other people, right, or hides me from my issues, right? And I don't really find recovery in it at all. I was just recently talking to somebody who was dealing with their wife, right, and got mad at her and called her all kinds of names, and they asked me, they said, well, you know, I've been clean for about 28 days, right? Do you think that's why I acted like that? And I said, no, you acted like that because you're a fucking asshole, right? Because that's true, right? You just are. Like the whole reason I come into recovery is I'm trying to learn how to not be.
Yeah, there's a big misnomer. Like when I hear this, when people say that they have to look within, they have to do their inventories because they have to find what they were like and the things that they did when they were drinking and doing drugs. Like it was the drinking and doing drugs that made them do it. You know, it's like, okay, to me, alcohol and drugs are like kerosene on a flame.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like also, by the way,
that's a great description, actually.
Yeah, because it's still my thinking. Alcohol and drugs didn't make me think those thoughts. You know, it's still me stuffing my feelings and acting like I need to be. Alcohol and drugs gave me permission to not be connected with my conscious, not to be self-conscious, not to be aware, so that if I'm sober, I will feel, oh, that's not the right thing to say. Oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. You know, and I'll slow her down a little bit, not perfectly, right? But I'll slow her down and I'll be like, oh, you know what? Something's not right about this. But if I'm on alcohol or drugs, then there's a disconnect. There's a numbing. There's a checkout that's happening. And it's like, oh, we're on vacation from having to be present for ourselves, you know? And so we end up saying things that we wouldn't have said before because now we've given ourselves permission to do it, you know, and taking things from an altered headspace. And so we do things when we're high or drunk or otherwise mentally lubricated, but it's not alcohol and drugs that made us an asshole,
Mm-hmm.
like you said. It is that you take away the alcohol and the drugs, and you still have the thinking. You still have the thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and you still have the drama, you still have the resentments, you still have the fears.
Well, that's it. That's the whole thing. Right? That's it. That's the whole reason I need recovery.
Right.
That's the whole reason I use. Yeah, I'm so uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right? I'm so agitated
Right.
all the time. I'm either sad, depressed, lonely, angry, fearful. Like, all of those things overwhelm me, and I don't understand why. But I do know I can fast forward time with drugs and alcohol, so I don't have to sit in those feelings at all if I don't want to. But they're still my feelings, and like you said,
they will
I am
come
still
back.
the fire, right?
Yeah.
So you throw some kerosene on me, and those thoughts and feelings overwhelm me, and boom,
Yeah.
right? I'm just off and running.
Yeah.
Because I've seen other people drink right alongside me and not act the way I do,
Mm-mm.
right? And so, like those guys that always get, I was never one of those guys, but those guys that drink at parties and get angry and they want to fight everybody. They think everybody's talking. I had a friend that did that. He used to sit there and you'd see the transition in his face muscles, right? Where his face muscles have went into angry mode. And he's looking around, he's just waiting for somebody to say something, right? And then you're just like, bro, why? Why? Right? You just don't get it. But a long time ago, I remember recognizing when I was in rehab that attitude is my reaction to my perceived environment, right? So if this guy's looking at his environment, he's fearful of it, he's uncomfortable in it, he feels out of place, you throw alcohol in there, and now he's definitely wanting to defend himself, he's wanting to knock you down so you don't think you're better than him, but none of that's actually happening.
Or he goes along with stuff that he wouldn't normally go along with, and he has no boundaries.
Yeah.
Either way, something's going to change that not necessarily in his highest good. You know, so instead of actually having tools and being empowered to have a better situation, screw tools. We're just going to have alcohol and drugs, bypass that, take a shortcut to feeling good, right? And in that situation, we don't necessarily know how to handle it. And so, and as kerosene to a flame will do, there's some destruction. There's some destruction, some kaboom, some people are going to see some things. And so for me, I had major anger issues, but the kinds of drugs I did and alcohol, they took me down. They mellowed me out a little bit. It was all a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and but I often overshot the mark and got depressed because depression is anger turned inward. So there's that energy, there's that sick thinking that's causing all this, like the feelings and the emotion and the energy and da-da-da-da. And so either it's going to come out on you or I'm going to explode or implode, right? And so I imploded then. I would implode. I mean, I had one of my most suicidal evenings when I was drinking and doing drugs combined. I mean, I gave my ring back to my boyfriend.
Of course.
You know, and promptly left in a huff with my whole desire to like end it all, you know, walking in the middle of the street with my boyfriend's, who is now my ex-boyfriend, his best friend, trying to stop me. Oh no, this not. I don't even understand why people watch soap operas. Just look at an alcoholic or an addict just live one day of their life.
Yeah,
you know?
right. No joke.
It's like you want to watch something, but yeah, no. So putting the wrong things first, having, you know, but we're used to that. We're used to believing that our real problem is that we're not making enough money. We're not appreciated at home enough. We're not having enough sex, you know, whatever it is. And it takes a second to learn to be able to live with a little bit more patience. But also, there are times when we really can't work in early recovery, or, you know, the relationship is toxic and we really can't do anything about it. We can't even focus on it yet. Maybe our spouse has built up resentments because we've dropped the ball so much, or we're not actually showing up, and we haven't shown up for a while, or maybe we spent all the money, or something happened, or maybe we've isolated so much that now that we have some sort of like self-esteem back, we're wishing, we're lonely, we're wishing that, you know, we could be with people, but man, we know we don't have the tools to get into a relationship right now. Like we've become, our eyes are open and we see the wreckage of, you know, all the hostages in our rearview mirror, and we realize, yeah, you know, I don't really want to do that again. And we start to realize that a new relationship, they say don't get into a new relationship or leave a relationship if you can help it in the first year, because it's so much change and there's so much to learn. It's too much. And so I am a total advocate of, if you need to take your time and not get the big high-powered job that made you use drugs all the time, and just get a different job right now, or yes, your relationship is on the rocks and you're having all these issues, but maybe don't put tremendous amounts of energy trying to make it right, try to fix it. Try to just keep doing the right thing and take this one step at a time and do incrementally better, and don't try to go get into the relationship. Don't try to use a person to escape yourself as another drug, just learn to find out who you are and what you really need and what's healthy for you. And a lot of people do. They get into relationships with other people in recovery, which is fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out, and I've seen some people where it's worked out, like in spite of all the crazy that they ended up going through, they found a camaraderie in it, and they because they both really wanted to heal. But sometimes it's people coming and putting fellowship first, putting dating first, and it's low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
The whole tree of recovery for newcomers, everybody's low-hanging fruit.
Dude, so I realized that I romanticized like my old life, right? And even if I find recovery, I still romanticize. I still remember my best of friends when I was a junkie, right? And I want to hang out with them, right? And this is the thing I was going to bring up to you. So I want to hang out with them, and now that I'm clean, I want to go show them how clean I am, right? I can't wait to do it, right? I'm going to go barge into that house. I'm going to tell that guy George. It was this old man George. Talks with an accent. I don't even know the accent, but he just talked to me like this, and he would say, "Kevin, you're not one of these blood-sucking vampires." Wally had a 40 and a dope pipe in front of him, right? He would tell me how all these other tweakers were blood-sucking vampires. And he'd tell me, "You don't belong here. Not in this neighborhood. You don't belong doing these things," right? And I used to be like, "I know, George, I know, but let me hit that." Like, all right, old man, just shut up, right? Well, so I could not wait to show him I finally got recovery. Like, I could not wait to show that old bastard that used to talk so much crap to me that I got recovery. But then there was a moment, right? There's a moment, and this is what recovery does for me, because there's a moment when I realized I don't want to know them anymore, right? I don't want to know them anymore. And the life that I had, I don't want anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes when you're in recovery, you got all these sick relationships or jobs or whatever tell me that you can look back on them and say, wait a minute, why am I working at these? Right? I romanticize the idea just because mostly in vengeance, right? I want to rub it in his face or any of their faces, or that girl that I
This is a good point.
Yeah, I couldn't find in recovery. Right? I wanted to go see her.
Yeah.
Right? That wouldn't have been good. Right? We ended up getting in a fight on Facebook and I ended up blocking her, didn't talk to her for years.
Yeah.
Right, so my recovery...
Now this is a really good point, because we are also, and this may seem completely paradoxical, but we do also get told that we need to change our people, places, and playthings and playpens. We have to change things, right? So if your job is one of the reasons why you're acting out, maybe everybody's like constantly doing drugs there or they're drinking, and you just know that if you're in that environment, you're likely to use again, then maybe you leave, and if your relationship is with somebody who's using drugs or drinking and will constantly want to undermine your desire to get
how many times
clean.
Have we seen that over the years?
Yeah, and then if you feel like you're not going to be able to stay clean in that house, in that situation, then maybe you take a break and you go stay with somebody else. And if your friends are friends that are fair weather friends, and they're the ones that are in your life because they mirror your drug or alcohol self and your goals at the time, then maybe you take a break from them too, And if there's certain routes that you drive, right, to go to work or to go home, and these are the ones that go past your favorite place to hang out where you always did drugs or drank, maybe you find a different path, And I think one of the biggest mistakes I've seen and experienced for myself in recovery is the arrogance that we bounce back and forth having, where we say, I'm okay, that'll be fine, I can handle that. I should be able to handle that. You know what? I don't want to abandon my friends. You know what? I should be stronger than this. I should be able to go and drive this way. It's faster, it's easier to get to work, and it's not a big deal. But what happens is, and this has been proven, not just in the bad side of this, which is the active addiction, but the good side of it too, is that when we do healthy habits, when we meditate, when we go to recovery events, when we read recovery literature, when we pray and meditate, when we do things, I mean, I said meditation twice, but maybe because it's important, but whatever, as we start to do it, like our brain chemistry starts to change, and the mind already starts to get into a position where it starts to go, I'm going to this recovery event. I'm already starting to calm down and have peace. Okay, I'm sitting and I'm reading this right now. Okay, now I'm going and I'm doing my ritual of however I meditate and however I pray. Or maybe it is the serenity prayer, and each time I do it, it's like my brain goes, Kevin's saying the serenity prayer because Kevin really wants serenity, and so let's give Kevin serenity, and so instead of going and doing the same things with the same people in the same place, having the same chemical reaction, having the same brain patterns for it, where the body goes, oh, Kevin's going down that road. Kevin wants drugs. Let's give Kevin the desire to have drugs because we want to support Kevin and what Kevin wants to do.
Yeah.
Instead of that, going and taking the body and taking the mind and investing our time and our energy into things that are going to create new patterns, and where our whole being is in recovery, right? Not testing the waters and making things unnecessarily harder. Because we do that. I don't care who you are in recovery. I've yet to meet a person who doesn't have a little bit of I-know-itis. I know.
Yeah, of course.
Or want to believe that they're terminally unique. Have you met somebody who doesn't think they're different?
Yeah.
I mean, it's why we isolated. It's why we kept doing what we were doing. We thought we could handle it better than other people. And man, do people brag about that. How much they can ingest, how much they can tolerate, what they could go
Especially
through.
alcohol for some reason. Alcohol is like the one.
Yeah.
You tell somebody, I can drink a whole bottle of tequila easy.
Right. You never hear somebody go like how much cc's or something, or how many pills. Like, actually I have. Yeah. Like,
another thing about it.
Like,
I've actually told
pain
the story.
medicine.
I can do a bottle a day.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, that's another thing. This is another thing of what not to do in recovery. Don't compare your drug or alcohol use to somebody else's drug and alcohol use. That's a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Because if I compare myself, my addiction to somebody else, I will tell myself either I'm worse than them and this can't help me, right? Or, man, they're worse than me and I don't need it.
Yeah, that's why, because I never banged it, right? So whenever I heard somebody did that, I would be all, they're totally worse, right? I would never have resulted in that. I've lived in trap houses, I'm homeless, I have the same clothes on for 4 days, but I would never in my life do that. And they might be all clean, right? They have their own job, right? But that just makes you less than me.
That's just, no. Yeah, no. I did that with dancing, too. Every line that I didn't cross yet, I would go, I'm good because this is my dancing. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And then a little bit more of a cross of a line go, well, but I did that because da-da-da-da-da. And now, times have changed and I have a whole different attitude about it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're just lowering your bar. You're becoming more tolerant of unhealthy behavior. So, I would definitely say, watch a temptation to compare. Obviously we hear focus on the similarities.
Yeah.
Focus on the similarities, focus on the feelings, focus on the thoughts. It's not, many people get clean and sober and still have cars and still have a house and still have their kids and still have their what's left, relationships and their health. And there are many people that have all of the above but don't have their health. And then there are many people that have all the above, but they're losing their kids, right? It's like everybody wants to compare, but what in the mind is wanting to compare? It's the mind that says, I don't need help.
Yeah.
I don't need help yet. And that's your anti-recovery voice. That's the voice that still thinks, has reservations and still thinks,
If I need help, I'm a failure.
or I shouldn't even need help. My dad said da 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 da, my mom said da 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 da, this makes me weak. Or what would people think?
That's a big one for me. What would people think?
Yeah.
That's why I didn't go anywhere for a long time.
Yeah.
And because I wanted my jobs in the media and broadcasting circles again, right? And if they knew, even though everybody in that field's an alcoholic,
right?
If they knew, then they would never want me back. Which actually ended up being semi-true because one of the owners of the company knew a lot of people, so he anywhere I put in an application, they already know what I was like. Which rightfully so.
But from your alcoholism, not that you are now in recovery, it's mostly everybody knows that we have problems with alcohol and drugs before, we're so afraid that they're going to find out.
I know, right? I'm all sucked out, living. Look, you can tell. I look back on the pictures now and you can tell something was wrong, right?
Yeah.
I'm all sweating in the middle of winter, you know what I mean? But, so I'm sure they already knew. They knew, but then they wouldn't spread the word. I had a lady I was talking to today. I was setting up a company for her. And, in the conversation, she mentioned that she had hit rock bottom. So I was ready to hear this rock bottom story. Right? Oh. And so I'm getting all pumped up for it. And I go, so what happened? And she's like, well, I was a medical assistant and I decided that I'm going to whiten teeth as a side business.
Okay.
Right. It didn't really work out. I got 500 people for the year. Right. I sold my house and I bought a fourplex and it's not done yet. So we're living in an RV in an RV park in Utah. I was like, that's your rock bottom story?
Yes.
Right? And I was like, but I didn't say it to her.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for a rock bottom story, right? The point of that is that her rock bottom was significantly different than what mine was. But in that moment, the reason she's starting this company is because she needs something, right? She needs something bigger than herself to help her through this.
Yeah.
Right? For her, she's going to find a company because she does not live my lifestyle. She probably doesn't need recovery as far as I know, right? But I do. But anybody can hit rock bottom, right? Rock bottom is just an emotion. So thinking that when I see someone, I haven't banged dope yet, or I didn't do that in this field of work or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It just, when my life is no longer the way I wanted it to be, and I can't seem to control it anymore, right? I have no manageability in it whatsoever. So my rock bottom is hit because I just give up.
Yeah.
And I was going to say this is one of my biggest issues, right, in my recovery is I could care less about anything, right? Especially when I was young. I literally could care less. I lost my houses, I lost everything, could care less. So when I get sober, all of a sudden I start caring.
Right.
Now I'm overboard.
Right.
Right. Every little thing matters, and I still do it to this day. I was just talking with you about something, and you're like, "Didn't you just say that always happens?" And I go, "Yes, but I need it to not happen ever again, right? Because I care."
Right.
Right. So now I'm overwhelmed by that.
Yeah, it's crazy how we do that. Now we care about everything. Now everything needs to be perfect. So let's see. What else do we do that we should? Oh, here's one. So there's a concept called principles before personalities.
Yeah.
And when we first get into recovery, we may find that the fellowship of people, the getting together, the camaraderie, the friends we're making, the people that, the mentors and the mentees and whatever, that we're going in, we're hanging out, we're learning how to do things sober or clean off of drugs. And this is fun. Wow, we didn't even think we could have, fun, clean and sober. But if we are putting that first, if recovery is just a place to hang out with people who are also not doing drugs and alcohol, while that does help us to have, a healthier support, we have new friends, new playpens, etc. We tend to then get more sensitive to what people think, and instead of focusing on why we're there. If we're sharing in a group, we're sharing because we want to sound good rather than what are we really talking about. If we're going to an event, we're going because we want to be with our friends, which is a great feeling, but we're going to be on our phones. We're going to be jiding with our friends. We're not going to be listening to the message. We're not going to be sharing the message. We're not going to be listening for God, and there's been times when I've been at a recovery gathering and I'm not getting anything out of it because I'm too focused on fellowship, on the joining, on the whatever, and I have to always remember, principles before personalities. Like, I'm not here because I want to make new friends. I mean, I want to make friends. I want to be able to have a life full of people that want what I want and are healthy to be around and are loving and supportive unconditionally and all that stuff that we get. But I'm here to save my life. I'm here to learn a whole new way. I'm here to learn to live one day at a time, life on life's terms. I'm here to unlearn all the crap that I either self-taught or learned from generations in my family tree of unhealthy, toxic thinking and behaviors. Like, I'm here to go deep. I'm not wasting my time. Like, I want to be healthier. I want to be freer. And so some people come to recovery for relief and some come for recovery. And it's not even important, why you're there in the first place, what motivates you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the person can come into an event because, the pretty girl or the cute guy is there, or they, really are lonely and they get a boost, having people actually care about them because they've burned all the bridges and they're not welcome in their families and whatever is happening. And, here, we're all welcome kind of a thing. But if we don't get into the work, if we don't really look and find out what our alcoholism, what our drug addiction, what that really was about, if we don't get down to cause and condition, then it's like my friend who passed away used to say, it's like polishing off a turd. It's still a pile of crap, It's just, it looks prettier on the outside because I'm dressing nicer, I'm cleaning up a little bit, I'm having some friends again, I'm having a sense of belonging, but I go home and I'm dead inside, like I'm not dealing with my own stuff, and so that's what's really important for me. Principles before personalities. And I used to say that in the beginning of my recovery all the time because I had to check myself. If I'm too focused on what other people think, and there's another part of this too, if I'm too focused on what other people think, I'm going to be too self-conscious. I'm not going to speak up. Yeah. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to really find my voice and heal my stuff around this stuff.
Oh, I've been in situations like that too, where I just felt so super uncomfortable. Sometimes people make you feel uncomfortable too, especially if they've been in recovery for a long time and they have their ways, right, in their group.
Like you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I can totally feel it. But sometimes it's just me too. I remember I was talking to my a buddy of mine who kind of helps me out through these processes, right? And I was talking about how I just moved out here and I had no friends, and everywhere I went, nobody would talk to me and da-da. And they said, well, you're trying to tell me that when you go up and introduce yourself, that they don't talk to you afterwards? I said, what are you getting at? He's like, how often do you introduce yourself? I was like, you don't come at me, sir. So it was up to me to take advantage of that. But I do know I've been to events where we talk about our issues, right? Mm-hmm. And in some of the events, someone they'll call, they have to call on you to talk about your issue, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I've been to them and all I want to do is talk, right? That's all I want to do is talk. And they don't ever call me.
So the whole time,
right?
The whole time you're like, and then you make. I was so guilty of this. Then you make eye contact with each person that's speaking, and you go,
yeah, right.
And
acknowledge me, you son of a gun.
Yes, and then you called on me.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so grateful when they do it. That's like, I'm shameful about it. I was like, yeah, let's go, dude. And I'm so excited I talk really fast.
Right.
But yeah, I totally was talking to somebody else about that. They were at the event with me, and I was like, yeah, dude, they're the worst, man. Like, this place, if you want to learn patience, you come here.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because a lot of the people, and in my head, I think to myself, it's always the same people
that
talk at this event. Always the same people.
Because they know each other.
I never go. So they do know each other.
Yes.
So I'm assuming they must do this every time.
Yes.
Right? So, yeah, I totally do that.
Yeah, but it alienates. But also they'll call on people that don't usually speak, and that also forces people to try, which is good too. But yeah, sometimes it can get pretty cliquish. Or when there's nothing more than somebody who's particularly verbose like us sharing maybe a little bit more than we're supposed to share time-wise. And then we think we feel a little shame hit, just a teeny one, because we went over the time. But then we're like, okay, I got what I needed to say. I said it. And then we stop. And then there's nothing but silence. Nobody's sharing next. And they're like, oh, well, if it was that, I could have shared a second time.
I know. Yeah, I've totally done that. That's funny. You want me to go again?
Yeah.
I'll go again. I got some things to get off my chest. Trust me. Oh, man. You called me out on that. I feel guilty right now. Just do it. You know what else I've done is I've done that over the timer, but then when someone else does it, you're like, you don't even have anything important to say. Like, why are you still talking? I'm guilty of that.
All right, well, at this point, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to go to commercial, and we'll see you in a minute. The Meeting Space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting, we walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The Recovery Store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the Recovery Store and the Meeting Space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal. Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Okay, and please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or are meant to replace your own intuition or professional medical advice.
It is pretty genius, though. Just throwing that out there.
If he says so himself. And so, let's see, other things that people do that maybe we shouldn't do in recovery because it just sabotages our goals of getting healthier.
Closed-mindedness. Is the one I think the most on, because so when I first start doing this thing, I remember this girl kept inviting me to church. I don't want to go to church, dude. That sounds terrible. But as I'm in this program of recovery, right, I'm going to all these different places. I'm seeing all these different people, and all of them seem to have this religious background, right? From what I see, anyways, because I haven't really dove into recovery too much. And so I was like, you know what? Let's do it, dude. Let's go. I sat there for an hour and hated every single minute of it, right? I still don't traditionally go. But every once in a while, what I did recognize when I was in there is I'm in a room filled with people that truly believe in something, right? And a lot of them are trying to be better versions of themselves. It's what I want out of recovery. Right? I might not agree with everything the guy on the stage is saying. I might not even like the music that they play. Right? But if I'm in there, if I'm in this room and I'm taking something from the moment, right, then my recovery seems to get better. Because I have to steal something from every moment that I have.
Yeah, there's something in everything. So there's a saying in recovery, contempt prior to investigation. And if I'm going around saying that that's not going to work for me, no, that's not true. Oh, that might work for that person, but that's not what I'm going to do, or whatever, then I'm going in with the same headspace that I use drugs and people and alcohol with. And if nothing changes, And if I don't get the memo that my real problem centers in my mind, that my real problem is my thinking, you know, and then it is true. Take what you like and leave the rest. You know, not everything that people say is going to apply to you or apply to you right now in your recovery. You know, like first things first. But there's many times when someone had said something and a seed was planted and I'm like, no. And then a year or two later, you know, the universe had beaten me into a state of reasonableness and my mind was cracked open just a little bit more. And I was able to realize like, oh wow, they were right. They were right. I couldn't see it at the time because I had so much ignorance and arrogance, and that's like a wonderful cocktail, arrogance and ignorance, where I'm going to be my worst enemy, my own worst enemy. So in recovery, you know, we can't put people on pedestals and we can't believe that everybody is like, oh my God, they're done, they're cured. And, you know, I'm coming here and they're all great and whatever like that. Because I promise you, people will let you down. Life is in session and we're all here because we're not all there. So people are going to end up having days and you're going to see their feet wobble a little bit. You're going to see sometimes where things come out sideways. And you might be tempted to tell yourself, oh, that means that recovery doesn't work. Or you can keep your expectations reasonable and realize that there are people that are focused on their recovery and that there are people that are focused on the mess.
Yeah.
And that everybody has something to teach you if you have an open mind, like you were saying.
That's it.
And so their lesson might be a warning, or it might be an idea of something I could see differently or do differently. If I pay attention and I just trust that, okay, does this resonate with me? Is this something I'm willing to try? I've had people tell me I should do things. My reaction is always first. It's still to this day. Somebody goes, you should. You know what, Lisa? You blah, 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 blah. Like dating and relationships, for example. Oh my God, this is such a good one. I've had people go, you know, you just need to be able to be by yourself, right?
Yeah.
And my mind has had a different answer for this for the 24 plus years I've been clean and sober. In the beginning, it was a whole different answer. But late, like this past several years, it was, no, I didn't get sober and I do all this work on myself to be this age and alone, you know?
Yeah, right? That's true,
we heal in our relationships and da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, no, you need to love yourself more. I'm like, I do love myself, but don't want to be alone? What's that about? So finally, one last relationship, one last ride on the merry-go-round of the same, and in some way, shape, or form, and it was like, you know what, they're right. So, you know, we can literally live our lives with the same thinking and have the same results. Like what did Einstein say? That you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so we could keep what we have and keep trying to throw it at our lives and try to like steamroll it and change it, manipulate it, and try to get different results. Or we can have an open mind and little by little go, you know, I will try that tool that's very uncomfortable. I will test this thought against my thinking and see if maybe I have a shift in my perception and a different experience. And it is the reason why people bottom, is to get their minds to crack open enough to try something else. The mind won't until it bottoms from a thought or a behavior, until it gets to a place where until we recognize that my thinking, my behavior, my situation, what I'm experiencing has become intolerable to me, until I get to that bottom. And it doesn't matter if it's a tooth cleaning business or it's one too many shots in the arm or anything that somebody's doing. It has to be where the mind wakes up, opens itself to the possibility that I can't live like this anymore. There has to be another way. And this isn't something that people just do, as you know, when they just get off alcohol and drugs. This is something we have to keep doing. We have to keep bottoming from these thought systems, from these ideas that we're running on, so that we could begin to unlearn some of the programming that's making us think and feel the way that we are, to choose the things that we do, to react to the things that we're reacting to, and to be miserable.
I had a friend, we were in sober living together, and I was talking to him about going and doing stuff, right, whatever, and he'd always turn me down, always. And I would say, bro, why don't you want to go? And he'd be like, I don't know, I just don't want to. And I was like, all you want to do is bang dudes. Like, that's all you want to do. I was like, he's like, yeah, well, I mean, I just don't feel like doing anything. I was all, you ever think the reason you use drugs and alcohol is because you're boring? Just like a boring
Oh my
person,
God,
right?
you
Like,
are so fun.
yeah, right? And he goes, huh? And he looks at me with the sassiest look ever. Right? Mind you, we're friends, so it's like,
Right.
I'm coming at him with love.
Right.
Right? But I'm trying to say, like, that's it, right? And so I was talking about that with other people, and a lot of times, like, I can't imagine how I'll ever go fishing without alcohol. You know what about fishing I like? Drinking alcohol. Right? The fishing itself sucks.
Right.
I don't find any joy in it
Right.
whatsoever.
So, do you really like fishing?
I don't,
Right.
not at all. I just want an
Right.
excuse to drink.
Right.
Right? So I'm going to start chopping my life up like that. And if I start to recognize that all these things that I thought I liked that I don't like because I'm not drinking or using, maybe I don't like them. But the things that I don't like, are probably because I couldn't drink and use them. Right? So if I can't drink and use them, why would I go?
Right.
So now it's time to reformat.
Yes.
The way I think,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I have people in my life that don't recognize that. And I don't hold strong to any certain perspective other than I don't hang out with a heroin addict. Like, I don't. Like, that's my only line. So I'm not the guy to come to if you're like, oh, they need a 12-step. No, right? Not the guy to do it, right? Because I just can't be around that sort of thing. Anything else, though, I'm pretty open-minded to. And I have to be because this world is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Right? It's so magnificent and large.
Yeah.
And if I don't take advantage of that,
Yeah.
what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right? And I want to show my daughter, especially, I want to show my daughter that there's this life that's so worth living. Because I get to go out there and I get to fail at a whole bunch of things, and then every once in a while I find success. But it's really not even the success that makes me happy, it's the path that gets me there that I find the joy in. Right? So when I'm sitting there and I'm doing nothing in my recovery, and I'm not trying new things, and I'm not failing at things, right? There's no joy in my life, really. I mean, and people think that not doing well at something brings you unhappiness. It only does if you judge yourself for it, right?
Right.
I was talking to somebody more recently, and I'm not going to get into details, but they were talking about me, and I was giving them an example on why their life isn't so bad. And they're like, but this happens, and you need to stop acting like you're so much better than me, putting yourself on a pedestal, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you do understand I literally went through that same exact thing.
Right.
Right? And I'm telling you about how I got through it and how I accepted that's where I was. Right? And when I accepted it, I could move on. Right? That's the only person putting me on a pedestal is you.
Right.
Right? Because it goes back to that thing you said earlier where I'm judging myself, right? And when I judge myself, that's when I come up with this depression and
we compare our insides to other people's outsides.
Yes.
Yes. And that's the other thing. Like, don't buy the press. You know, we're going to these events and we're putting our best foot forward. We're sharing about what's working. We're sharing about the wisdom that we've learned, the things that we've shifted, how long we've been clean and sober, you know, but my favorite shares are when people talk about like really what's going on. Like when somebody gets up to a podium and says, yeah, so I just came home and my husband was cheating on me, or, you know, I got challenged because the place I was working is downsizing, and now, you know, this is what I've been doing for forever, or I just got diagnosed with something and this is the thing that I'm walking through right now. Or like when you were going through all this stuff with your daughter, you know, and you know, really making our recovery current. That's another thing I feel don't. You know, don't think that yesterday's recovery is going to keep you sober, clean and sober today.
Yeah.
Yesterday's recovery was good for yesterday, and some of the things that I learned about myself, there's more to learn in that, you know, and to have an open mind and to not be done. And I've seen this, and this one goes out to people who are not new. This goes out to people who are not new in recovery. Don't be the bleeding deacon. Don't be the one that knows all the answers. Don't be the martyr that does all the things for everyone and mentors all the people and has all the answers. Don't be that person that acts like you're perfect, because I personally, I mean, we step up on pedestals too, and like I don't ever want to be on one. I don't want the pressure of having to be perfect. I don't want the pressure of having to be done. I tell on myself to people. I'm like, yeah, walking through a thing. This thing came up to heal, because I want to show that like you said earlier, just because you stop drinking or doing drugs doesn't mean the thinking's been completely arrested. It doesn't mean that you don't have stuff to heal. It doesn't mean that you're still not capable of generating a little inner chaos or a little outer chaos and ending up not being comfortable in your own skin. Doesn't mean that. This is why it's a one day at a time thing. Nowhere in this does it suggest that you're done, you're healed, you get the trophy, the award, and thank you for playing. And now you get to give it to everybody else, when you don't have to work on yourself anymore. The person who continues to work on themselves, to continue to let their mind be a little bit more open and more open, the recovery gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it can keep getting bigger. And we get to a place where life is amazing, and we didn't even know how we got there, because the thinking that we brought into recovery was never going to deliver that result. It wasn't. No. And it's not just about what we have outside of ourselves. It's about how empowered and at peace and free we feel.
Absolutely.
It's important that we have open mind and not an open, and also to watch the temptation to, romance the past, to romance the drink. I personally do not hang out with people who smoke pot or who do drugs or who drink often. My exception is if somebody does drink, but this once in a while, once in a blue moon, and it's not a thing that I feel like they are expressing they need. Yeah. If I say to them, in dating, if I say, I'm more comfortable being around somebody who's not drinking, and they balk and they're like, at all? Like, what will we do? Like the person who identifies drinking with events or anything, it's like, oh my God, in my mind, I'm thinking, are they even going to be able to have sex?
Yeah, right.
Are they going to, because I couldn't, when I first got sober, which is a whole different topic, I couldn't live. I didn't know how to do anything not high.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do anything. I had to learn all of that, and that took a second. So
I'd be too high to do anything.
Oh really?
Yeah.
No. I liked being high, especially with sex, because I felt like I was too self-conscious, and I needed to let go, and so I self-medicated my inhibitions.
Well, it's just for physical reasons. I would do too much and not be able to.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to for sure. It's the whole reason I started doing drugs in the first place.
Yeah. I would actually. I don't know how we got here. I apologize, maybe. But I would actually be in certain circumstances like almost catatonic, and later I was like somebody actually.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to have sex with somebody who, unless you have was it necrophilia or something?
Yeah.
Unless, why would you want to have sex with somebody who's not there?
No, I wouldn't.
So whatever. Anyway, I guess last words of advice in recovery is to keep an open mind, stay focused on the solution, and to watch where we're putting our attention, and to let the world be a classroom for us to heal and recenter and set your priorities, because if you're there for relief, you'll get relief and maybe relapse. But if you're there for recovery, man, when you're there for recovery finds you.
Yeah, it's the truth. Like you're saying, if you get open-minded, and by open-minded I mean seeing the solutions, right? Just open your mind to all the different solutions so you can actually hear them as somebody says them, and then be willing to try a few, right? And they can go either way, like cutting people off or adding people in, or cutting events off or adding events in, right? Like just be willing to do some things that you saw other people do and that brought them belly laughs, right? Like that's a big deal, or brought them serenity. Like some people want that. I'm not that person, right? Serenity's not a huge deal for me right now. Right? I wish I had it, but I also want joy and all those kind of things, especially in the early stages of me getting recovery. Like, I just wanted to be happy. I was done being sad and depressed and feeling alone all the time. Like, when someone says you want serenity, it's like, I don't want to be bored ever again. Right? I don't want to be bored and lonely ever again. I don't really know what that means till later. But being willing to try all these different things, now I know.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and stay off your own hose. It's a process, and nobody does it perfectly, and so we don't we don't need to feel like just because we stopped drinking and doing drugs that we should have mastered it. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us on the Real Recovery Show. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
I love having you here. I love having conversations with you. I hope we do a lot more of them.
We will.
Okay.
We will. I got some freedom now.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, very cool. Well, thank you, and we'll see you next week.